America's impunity has to end. It's gone on for way too long, for far too long. It's warped the thinking of not only their own people, but to some extent even our own thinking. I mean, imagine that we've normalized, this has become normal for us, the wholesale slaughter of 20,000 innocent people, families, 12,000 children and babies massacred in their homes. And it's somehow controversial to condemn that. Controversial to say it's a war crime, to say that it's genocidal. And I mean, condemn it explicitly, not just say some obfuscating platitude like, we condemn the killing of innocents on both sides. No, if you can't say directly and frankly and explicitly, Israel, specifically by name, Israel is committing crimes against humanity in the Gaza Strip. Israel is behaving savagely. Israel is behaving with wanton violence. And not only does it have to be stopped immediately, but every member of Netanyahu's cabinet needs to be put on trial. If you can't say that obvious fact, if you can't see that obvious fact, well, I don't know what kind of a human being you are. The United States, subhanallah, has made a complete malicious mockery of even the concept of international law, of human rights. They've made a mockery of even the concept of peace and stability and security. Well, I don't think that any American official should even be allowed to use any of those terms. The moment any of those American officials, any of those U.S. politicians use these words, they devalue the meaning. It's like Iblis saying ittaqillah. It's like a wolf purring like a kitten. And this has inflicted cognitive dissonance on everyone in the world, on all of us. It's a cognitive dissonance. You know, the entire Middle East right now, all of the Arab states, Iran, everyone is right now, at this moment, frantically engaged in diplomacy and negotiations. To do what? To try to prevent the United States from escalating the violence. To try to prevent the United States from unleashing war across the whole region. Do you understand what that means? Do you understand that that's what's happening? Everyone in the region, and even outside of the region, is busy trying to keep the region safe from American violence. Because what's happening in Gaza is nothing but American violence. And the neocons in Washington still want to spread that violence to Iran. They want to spread that violence to Lebanon. They want to spread it to Yemen. They want to set the whole region on fire. Well, that's what happens. That's what happens when you allow a brutal, vicious, psychopathic country to be treated like it's normal. You know, when you treat the United States as if it's a civilized actor on the global stage after everything that they've done, when literally they're the only ones who have kept the Palestinian conflict going for the last 50 years. It would have been resolved by now. They're the ones who are threatening the Middle East right now with violence and war and escalation. That's them. No one's doing it but them. So when they say peace, we know, everyone in the world knows, when they say peace, what they mean is acquiescence. They mean capitulation. They mean domination without resistance, or with any resistance, any and all resistance, completely annihilated. And no one's calling them out for that. No one ever calls them out for that. They just treat it like it's normal. And it's gone on for far too long. We've normalized American savagery, American bullying, American violence, American belligerence. And we just treat it as if it's something that we all have to accept, that it's just a fact of nature. I mean, think about this. All of the countries in the Middle East, all of the BRICS nations, Russia and China, all of them are struggling to bring peace to the region, stability to the region. And who is opposing them in that? Who is actually opposing them in bringing peace and stability? Well, it's the United States. At this point, being opposed to America is synonymous with being opposed to war. Being opposed to the United States means the same thing as being pro-peace, because you can't be pro-peace and pro-American at the same time. If the BRICS nations, which now include Saudi Arabia it includes Iran, the UAE, and Egypt, if those countries, if BRICS, succeed in isolating and decreasing American influence in the Middle East, which is what they're trying to do, if they succeed in that, then that's the only way that the region can ever actually achieve peace and stability and security. You have to get the United States out in order for there to be peace and stability and security anywhere in the world. You know, they call themselves, they think of themselves as the global policeman, but they're a global mass murderer. It's a country that acts in the world like a serial killer. Everywhere they go, they leave bodies. Everything they touch, they break. So, I mean, you tell me why the U.S. should be in the United Nations. Why the United Nations is an organization that should have been formed specifically to counter the United States. It's an insult to the whole planet to have America sitting in the UN, much less sitting on the Security Council. Imagine the Security Council, the greatest threat to global security, and they dominate the Security Council. How can anyone take this organization seriously like that? This can't go on, and I don't think it will go on. Even the owners and controllers of global financialized capital are getting a divorce from the United States. You know, you've heard people talk about deglobalization. Well, that's what deglobalization actually means. It means global business de-anchoring themselves from America. Because America is becoming a liability. And this trend of business moving away from America is part of the reason why the BRICS diplomacy and the Arab diplomacy is being backed in the Middle East. Global business doesn't want war with Iran. I mean, at most, all they want in that region and in that context is for there to be just enough tensions in the region to accelerate the deterioration and the disintegration of Europe. But nobody wants to see the region go up in flames, except Washington. This is why I'm saying it's time, it's past time for the United Nations to invoke Article 6 and expel the U.S. from the United Nations. It's a violent, warmongering country, and the rest of the world doesn't have to go along with it anymore. The rest of the world doesn't have to pretend that this is normal, that everyone is supposed to just hold their tongue and be fine with the murder, the massacre of 20,000 innocent people over the course of just 3 months. They don't need to tiptoe around American brutality for fear of offending them as if they have any right to do what they're doing. The whole global South, the whole Muslim world, Russia and China, and all of the BRICS nations are politically and economically trying to talk down a madman with a gun, and that madman is the United States. Well, you and I both know that the United States has never treated the UN as if they're just a member of the UN. They never dealt with the UN like they're just one from among all of the other countries in the world, just one from among all the countries on earth. The United Nations, as long as the U.S. is in there, is just like a meeting room where all of the countries in the world go to get their orders from the boss. You know, like workers, like employees, and they don't even have collective bargaining power because this pillar of democracy, this great democratic beacon of the world, will shut them down and render them completely powerless and voiceless if the United States doesn't like what they're saying. If this great pillar of democracy doesn't like what they're saying, they'll shut them down. They even make a mockery of the name United Nations because it doesn't matter how united the nations of the world may be. While they've been united for the last 50 years on the issue of Palestine and it didn't matter, the U.S. will overrule them every time. So no, it's not the United Nations. The United Nations, so-called, is just a platform for American exceptionalism and rejectionism. And as long as the United Nations allows this and does not invoke Article 6 and expel the United States, well, I think that every country in the world is just participating in some sort of ritual humiliation and doing nothing but offer tribute to the very country that consistently and insistently does all of the crimes that the UN was created supposedly to prevent from being done. It's like a court where the criminal who's supposed to be on trial sits in the judge's bench. It's as if the victims are in the court being sentenced by the one who victimized them. This should deeply offend anyone's basic moral sense. It offends every principle that the United Nations claims to stand for. And I think it's an unpardonable offense for every nation and for every people on earth. And it's not like they don't have the protocols. They have the protocols and they have the mechanisms to do something about it and to put it to an end. And that's exactly what they need to do. And they need to do it now.